keyboard that Moog, Moog. I always, you know what?
No.
I need to
No,
Moog.
you did pronounce it, and it's like a Dutch name, which I found in Holland, they pronounce Moog.
Not like a cow.
Yeah.
No.
But I always mispronounce his name. It's one of my. It's a New York thing, maybe.
I
Yeah.
did before.
We-
that it
Yeah.
was-
And I did too.
Moog.
We all did.
Yeah. So somebody had a question. I saw a hand out there. Or something.
Something I would like to hear you guys address Verity. I think we're going to, personally, I think we're going to see a great deal of fetishization of Verity coming up because of the advent of digital. And something that I love about Moog synthesizers is the actual Verity of it, because what you have is what is there in front of you and what you do with it. So I'd love to hear you guys riff on Verity for just a little bit of reality.
Wait, okay. Verdi, like the composer, or
That's what I thought.
or verity, like the actuality of something. Well, she's the philosopher.
Well, I think what I'm thinking about now is that many people are writing about the fact that people do less and find it harder to make choices when too many choices confront them. There was an interesting experiment done with offering people tastes of 6 jams in a supermarket and tastes of 24 jams. People were much more likely to buy one of the jams if they had only 6 to choose from. And so I think that one of the things about actually working on a real instrument is that while you have lots of choices, particularly on the instruments that Bob invented, you don't have an infinite number. You have some large but usable set of choices in front of you. And I think that we are in danger in many, many ways of being overwhelmed by too much choice. So that would be my comment.
And in the same context, I mean, if you go back to, again, I keep thinking about when culture had less to compare, like the ancient Greeks, if you go to Pythagoras, where there's this, Pythagorean tuning systems, you have to imagine having rules sometimes makes for a more richer thing. And our culture right now is overload, too much of everything all the time. And it's intriguing because you have to imagine, I'd say the next, couple of years, people are going to be looking at the notion of authenticity. What is an authentic experience? Most people consume media through a media file, but they're not going to go see the band until they've actually heard the song already. So they're already, at a distance to the live event, and they're always experiencing everything through a recording. Whether it be video, whether it be audio, whether it be a web clip on YouTube. So if you go back to the 20th century, one of the revolutionary tools of the time was the record player that was invented by Edison. And Edison never thought people would want to hear records. In fact, he was a really cantankerous guy. And he was like, this is going to be for business dictation machinery so that they could get rid of secretaries. He didn't feel like dealing with his secretary so much. No, dead serious. It's a wild story. So he invented an automatic secretary device to take dictation so that you could record the voice or playback and you would no longer have to deal with your secretary. So it was meant to be a recording device that you could play your voice back. And he said no one would ever want to listen to a record of this. It's just for business tools. So sometimes the best things happen by accident, and somehow there was a series of accidents, that led to people to think, well, wait a second, let's record the music instead of just somebody saying the meeting tomorrow is at 10 p.m. Or something. So these kinds of accidents are what make, I think, our culture kind of always renew in a way that is unpredictable. And that's when you're talking about Verity, and it's the problem with the 20th versus 21st, and this is where I'm a big fan of Marshall McLuhan just as much as I am of Moog, is, he has this great book called The Medium is the Massage, where it's a graphic design book, and every page was meant to be it was called an inventory of effects. So you can think of it as like dub literature, it's kind of like playing with reverb, delay, all this kind of stuff on a text. And I love that idea of improvising and the mashup and all these things that we've now inherited. We've totally stripped back all of these notions of authenticity and said, well, it is what you choose it to be, which has a lot of philosophy issues. Again, I majored in philosophy, so I've always chuckled over. It's like what they call Cartesian doubt about realism. It's like there's always something. So that's what The Matrix was about. That's what Inception, this film that just came out a while back. One of my favorite films is Memento, where this guy can't remember anything and he keeps having to write it on his skin. These kind of interior, Chris Nolan, same. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but I think And I don't know if this addresses your question, but I think it does. It seems to me that we are in danger, first of all, of forgetting that while we play, and I think that's the right word, with these issues of reality and illusion, we need to live in a world which is increasingly frightening because we haven't been paying attention to the material facts, which, I don't need to remind you, are of a diminishing resource base and an increasingly fast, quickly increasing base of people who are consuming those resources. Bob, I think the only doubts that Bob had about the impact of his invention were the ones that he expressed in the film, which I like. I think Hans did a great job. That music used to be a social occasion. It was something that brought people together, and it used to be one in which people interacted in multiple ways with their instruments. The performers interacted with each other, they interacted with the audience was made into a more cohesive whole by being together. Often people sang together, and the social aspect of music has been very, very seriously disrupted by the increasing distance between the making of music and the hearing of music, and the fact that you don't have to get together with other people to hear music. And I think that fits into our increasing alienation from the real thing. So that was something that he talked about more and more toward the end of his life. So that was a big concern.
That's I just want to add a little bit to that, because of course what you're saying is and I joked before about putting logic away and just saying forget it, because the concept of rhythm I run into with my composition students, and this year each year it changes, and this year it's become even more of an interesting problem, where you have a composition student who wants to become a composer, but he's faced with, or he or she is faced with, a world of questions. What is that? Who am I? And as a composition teacher, I always want to say, well, you need to bring John out, of your ideas, your work, and the students have more problem finding who they are, and want more in the way of rules, which is very interesting, because that's the way music history and music teaching has gone, reached the point of so many rules that the composer said, oh, the hell with this, I don't need these rules, I don't need so much music theory, I want to be a composer. And now, because perhaps of the difference in the way people are now thinking, the composers, and I've spoken with other teachers about it, are a bit lost, trying to find their own identity. It's an interesting, it may not be a true picture, but it's something that's, I think, is interesting.
The woman here,
Yeah, sorry, we got about 5 or 10 more minutes. Let's try to get
there was a woman who had a